My name is Colonel Denny Peoples, and in Prescott, Arizona, we'd like to introduce Colonel retired Ronald Byrne. He's a POW from Vietnam, born in Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn, New York. He was forced to eject over Vietnam and taken prisoner of war for 2,725 days. Colonel Byrne was released in 1973 and then retired as a colonel. I mentioned to him when I started my military career in the 1980s, I knew a dozen prisoner of wars. They were our instructors. They were still with us. But now it's pretty rare to have any knowledge of a true prisoner of war. It's more or less to have them in your classroom. So I'd everybody like to welcome Colonel Byrne.
As I understand it, this is a history class.
Yes, sir.
How many of you have got a good handle on the history of Vietnam?
We're going to have a test tomorrow. We'll find out.
And can somebody give me an approximate location of where Vietnam is?
Naka, I want you to turn yours off.
Where in South?
Bill, you can.
Okay, this is the States. Let's move this thing in. Maybe we can find out where Southeast Asia might be. Okay, there's Southeast Asia.
Let me go.
There's Thailand.
Zoom
There's
out.
Laos. There's Hanoi. Right over here is Hainan Island, which is China. Over here, we're going up along the way past the Philippines up to Okinawa. You know that. But we're talking about Vietnam, but we unescapably have to talk about Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand. Can you move in a little bit on Thailand?
Yes. On Thailand?
Yeah. Very good. Okay, there's Bangkok. During the Vietnam War, we had bases here, up here, there, and up in here. The bases here and here were both 105 bases until such time as the F-4s finally got into the theater. But the 105 was the staple of those two bases, and we flew from there up into what we call Group Pac 6, which was anything north of about this point here in Vietnam. And there was a mountain chain right in here that we call Thud Ridge. And so we could come up here around that ridge and come down toward Hanoi. Let's go back to turn yours on again, please. Okay, this is Lieutenant Commander Paul Galante. He's being shown there, sitting on his bunk. This is his bed, and we have beds like this. On top of it, there's a little mat. You can see it's sort of where the crease was in there. That's his mattress, about 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay. What I would like to talk to you about today, from my perspective, is being in the service, is being a person that has friends, real important friends. You're developing the possibility of friendships here, of people that have like jobs, like aspirations, like that. Through my Air Force career, I've had the opportunity to make a lot of friends. Let's move on with it. During that time, here's a friend that's Red Bird, Popcorn. This is Shoemaker, Smitty Harris, Larry Garino. That's me, right there. That's what we call the Hanoi March. In the 29th of June of 1966, we bombed some lubrication of POW storage that was very close to downtown Hanoi. As a result of that, we believe, they decided they were going to make an example of those people that had been taken prisoner of war up to that point. They got 52 of us, and they handcuffed us in pairs and marched us down in Center Street in Hanoi. On the outside of us were guards, here and here. They also had interrogators moving along, this guy here, and then the people on the outside. When we went downtown, I had the opportunity to be with a number of these guys in a truck and was able to communicate with some of them for the first time. Larry was my roommate and was remaining my roommate for 3.5 years. You really get to know somebody in 3.5 years with nobody else with you at all except a wall, maybe a foot to a foot and a half thick between you and the next cell or next room. We were unloaded from the trucks, started moving down at right angles to this street that we're on right now, and it was deathly quiet. I heard one yell, and I had time to tell Larry right on cue. And as soon as that went on, the whole place went up the brim. People yelling, screaming, and like that. I saw a woman who had her child, I think the child may have been anywhere from 20 to 7. Hard to tell because these people being small in stature and small in build, but she was unable to get past these guards on this side. She picked that child up, threw it across the thing, and hit Smitty Harris on the shoulder. I kept on walking. I never knew what had eventually happened to that child. But that's one little bit, one little vignette. Now I'm going to explain to what I'm going to be talking about today, how I'm going to be talking about it. You're talking to a guy that was a colonel before he became, even had his wings, before he completed school, before he completed college. So I'm ancient, I guess you'd have to say. And talking with ancient people is sometimes it's hard for us to get the words out and talk, so you have to bear with me. I work best when you join with me. So if you ask me questions, you'll get a lot more out of me than just letting me ramble on. What I've got in this projector here is a group of slides that are, for me, are talking points. A little on my history and a little bit on Vietnam. So let's continue on. Korea. Have you had your Korean history yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is a revetment in Suwon, Korea, which is about 50 miles or so south of Seoul. And we had the 51st Fighter Interceptor Wing there. And this was my airplane. I flew 75 missions before the war was ended in that airplane. One that you might have seen more of. Next slide, please. Well, that's me after I got released. I got a few things here, and you can see this was in '73. Where were you in '73?
73, I was 14 years old.
Okay.
Just as old as some of these kids.
Okay. Next one. This is a picture of an 86 in that same area that's a little bit more noteworthy. Some people who have done models might have put together a model of this. Jim Thompson is a good friend of mine. He lives in the Dallas area now. Next. That's me there in Korea. Next. Later on, my Air Force career with the F-100s. This was at Bunker Hill Air Force Base, later Grissom Air Force Base in Indiana, someplace between South Bend and Indianapolis. Next one. And that just happens to be a 105 flight in Southeast Asia. Okay, this is going to be starting some of the talking points. People ask, how do you go to the bathroom? Here you are. You have your sandals. There are sections of tire with sections of inner tube. So they cut slits in there and then pull them through. And now you've got your sandals. Now you have your seat for your bucket. Cut that off. Okay. No, cut it. Turn it off. Off switch. There you go. Okay. Now let's go back to your. Okay. So we got this here. Now, can you bring up the picture of the camps?
I actually have it on the tabs there on the top.
On the top. Here it is. Oh, okay.
And highlight, take the area of the map and zoom in on it.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Okay. When I was at Perak in Thailand and flew into Vietnam, we were trying to hit a target someplace up in this area near a town called Yen Bai. There was a arsenal up there. And we were going to bomb that, but in a special way. The 105, my airplane, has a toss bomb computer in it, meaning that you can come into a target, have a known distance from one point to the next point to the target, and come in at an altitude, hit your point, and the computer will figure out just where you are and tell you when to pull up, and you start to pull up, and at some place in the climb, the bombs will release. The bombs will come off and go on and hit the target. It was designed for nuclear weapons, so the accuracy was not that good. But they were going to try it here. So we got 4 people to go into a target that was there, as I say, up in that area again by. We had a place where we had good measurements and good, solid initial point that we could figure out just how to go in there. So what we're going to do is go in there at about 100 feet in the air at 550 knots, which is 623 miles per hour, and go on in there. We were due to go in there at about 550, as I said. As I came in there on the target, I was the fourth guy in there. We had the squadron operations officer, a project officer who came over from the States, from Nellis Air Force Base outside of Las Vegas. He was the one who was trying to make this thing work. Our wing stand-of-valve officer was number 3, and then I, the assistant ops officer, was number 4. As I got in toward my initial point, which was identical, all 4 airplanes have to go that same route, 100 feet in the air, 550. And I figured the guy in front of me was not doing that thing. He was actually slow. So I was climbing up on this back end. And when I believe, got hit by ground fire that was intended for him. Was anybody that shot skeet or anything else knows that knows where you have to lead. So I figure somebody was shooting at him and I intercepted that round. So
What did you get shot with, sir?
but
What did you get shot with?
I think it was either a 57 or an 80 millimeter, I'm not sure, but it was that. But the 105 has got a gun here in the nose section of it. The gun will fire 20 millimeter at 6,000 rounds per minute. It's got a whole bunch of ammunition there. I knew I'd gotten hit. I continued to run in, released the weapons, and started pulling out when all of a sudden I was visited in the cockpit by white fire, flash fire, which meant to me that either the phosphorus that was in the ammunition there or magnesium in some of the components in the frame of the airplane were burning. But I had white fire in the left wheel well, or left rudder well, like up my left foot. And I decided that as the fire was coming in, I was going to let it have it, and then I was going to get out. So I did. By that time, I had climbed up to about 15 to 17,000 feet and initiated the ejection sequence. I didn't have to do anything about figuring out when to pull the parachute release because it was all automatic. All of a sudden, I was in the chute coming down someplace in about this area of North Vietnam. As you can see, North Vietnam was here. If you take a look at it, I was there, and coming back to here, I didn't get any further than about this location there before I could get up. Come down on it, and I could see underneath me was a small hill. It was covered with vegetation. Vegetation turned out to be bamboo. Bamboo stalks. My parachute got caught in the top of the bamboo and just lowered me down to where my feet hit the ground about like that. Beautiful landing. The only problem was around that hill I could hear all sorts of people. And I was like a sugar cube on top of an anthill. They were coming at me from all directions. The first one that came close to me, I saw him come through the vegetation. I said, "Hi." He turned around and left. He didn't want any part of it. About 30 seconds later, there was about 15 that came up.
When you were climbing, right before you climbed to release the bombs, what elevation were you at?
100 feet. 100 feet going 620. So, pretty good.
In the modern terms, it's called a loft. Did you call it loft?
Yeah.
You're going very fast, and then you pull up, and it lofts the bomb to hit to a target.
Yeah.
And again, he was inventing it because it was designed for a nuclear attack. It was not accurate.
Yeah.
We just had bad luck that day to
Yeah.
be shot down. That was bad luck.
I'd also think it was pretty stupid to have 4 airplanes, one after the other, on the same track.
They still do the same thing. It's not like they've learned any difference.
Well, anyway, I could get it down, and as I said, about 30 seconds or so after the first guy saw me, they were all around me. I took off my flight suit, but thankfully they left on my boots because I was up on the top. They tied me around my thumbs, just twine, real heavy twine, around my thumbs, behind your back, and I didn't realize how that totally eliminated any chance you had of doing any kind of motion. Because every movement you made pulled on your thumbs, and the knuckles in your thumb prevented the twine from moving off. So beautiful. They set me in a small village that was at the base of that hill. Yes.
What was his first thought whenever he got captured?
What was it?
What was your first thought whenever you got captured?
It's too much adrenaline going to even have a thought on that. But keep that thought because there was a point where that first thought did come, but it came later. And I'll tell you about that. So they put me down in the center of a square in that little village, and somebody started lecturing all the people around there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then they moved me out toward a road that went down along that Red River and moved along someplace probably in this area here where they had a outlying camp, army camp. They kept me there for a couple of hours, and then from there on into the Hanoi Hill. Hanoi Hill, we named it. It was an old French prison. The name of it was Poirot, Hoalo, 2 words. I was in there for a couple of days before I was moved into another thing. I'll get onto that a little bit later. But then that started at the time I was in a room overlooking a small courtyard that had a latrine at one end of it. And that was the time when it all of a sudden hit me, because going into that courtyard was a step of maybe 4 to 5 steps high, concrete. At the base of the steps was a little trough that was in the concrete and had a sharp edge, sort of like this. And I'm standing up looking at the courtyard, and I looked down at that thing and I said, now if I dive head first at that sharp edge, then I wouldn't have to worry anymore. That was the lowest period that I had during the entire time I was there. I was very fortunate because I'm an optimist. Always have been. I'll probably die on my deathbed as an optimist. But that's where it is. Let's continue with this. Turn it on. There we go. You think of handcuffs. These handcuffs are wrought iron. They've got a screw at this end, recessed screw, and a hinge on this end, so clamshell come together, and they rigidly control your hands. None of this flexible piece of chain in between 2 cuffs. That's the kind of cuffs that they put it in. They use the other ones too. There was indication that they have. Next. I went from that first room to this room, or into down here, and I actually went into this room number 4. This was called the Heartbreak Hotel area of the Hanoi Hill. 2 concrete slabs with leg iron positions here. Here the leg irons was a big clamshell that came down, like those handcuffs, but instead of having the lock in the cell with you, they actually had a bar that came through the wall here and then into the end of that clamshell to keep it down. So they had actually 7 rooms operational, and then one of them they had as a shower and as a garbage bin. You take the bucket you saw earlier, and you would just empty it down through here. Okay, now, all of you probably know Senator John McCain. When he got shot down, they brought him in to this room. It was wet, moldy for my time, and he had broken bones and not good shape at all. They came into him in that room and told him, he says, "You're too far gone, we can't help you." He walked out, closed that door. It was about, I forget what he says in his book about that, how many hours later, but they came back and said, "Your father, big man, we help you." At the time, his father was the top military man in the Pacific, Admiral McCain. If it wasn't for that, he would have been left there to die. But they took him in the hospital, and you can read his books and like that as well as I can. One other not noteworthy thing, at one time, my commander, and here I get into the position of people you get to know in the military. In this room here was Robbie Reisner, Robinson Reisner. And if you ever go to the Air Force Academy, you'll see a statue of him there. Robbie was my commander. He was the commander of the 67th Fighter Squadron. I was the assistant ops officer. He was there. Ray Merritt was over in here. Smitty Harris, I forget where he was, someplace in here. But all of us from the same squadron. It just showed us that we really weren't that sophisticated, because if we hadn't had opportunity to put together the story, they put us all together in that one area. Now, Robbie Reisner is he's since deceased. Well, 186, and that he's deceased. But he was one of these type of individuals that he'd walk in a room and he immediately got everybody's attention. He just was tremendous with people. He was a fighter pilot, a real fighter pilot. In the Korean War, he shot down 8 MiGs. At times, how many of you here have flown? There's 1, 2, 3. When you get into an airplane and you're up, sometimes it's hard to find out where all the other airplanes are around you. Robbie Reisner was the kind of guy who could see everyone, knew where they were, and could, over his radio, control them to tell him where to go and how to do it. Just an outstanding individual. When he got shot down 2.5 weeks after I did, and the first thing I thought of when I heard his voice from here was, "The guy's coming to check up on me." I was just, it was amazing. He asked us for an idea of how long we're going to be there. Everybody came up with their things, and my answer from my room to here was, this was in September. I said, "Oh, we may get out by February." Everybody else was about 30 days, 45 days, something like that. Robbie said that if he could have reached me, he would have killed me. It just, that somebody who thought we were going to be there that long, but 7.5 years.
So you're saying originally everybody thought you were going to be there for 30 or 60 days.
Right.
You said 5 months,
Yeah.
but it was really 7.5 years.
You're not asking enough questions. Go.
Can you tell us about the tap code?
Pardon?
Can you tell us about the tap code?
The tap code. Okay.
We can do that. Turn it off and I'll.
Okay. Good.
He's already got it set up.
Did I have?
Sorry,
Have you in mind?
Good.
Good.